There is an asteroid discovered in December 2004 called Apophis.
This is Apophis, and if you'll notice at the bottom of the screen, NASA has ruled out an Earth impact in 2036 for asteroid Apophis. Unfortunately, we never know whether NASA is telling the truth or not. Today, I'm going to be playing two videos by Neil deGrasse Tyson, both saying exactly the same thing, same jokes, same rhythm, same rhyme, from 2 weeks ago and from 15 years ago. And I'd like you to listen to the very end of the video, because at the end of the video, Mr. Tyson talks about NASA. Now, you've just read that NASA rules out an impact, but Tyson doesn't. The reason I'm making this video is because somebody asked me when the end will come. In the last 5 years, I made one video where I worked out when this would be. And I based it upon the opening of the small scroll in 2014, there being a half hour of silence in heaven before the end of the world starts up. And 1,000 years is as a day, and a day is as 1,000 years. And if you break that down to a half hour of silence, that works out to be 22.4 years, which turned out to be 2036.4, which is April-May. So God didn't give that to me directly, I just worked it out. So whether that's God-given or not, I'm not 100% certain. But basically, I worked it out and said 2036, and the 7 years of the end of Revelation, the tribulation, will begin in 2029, because it's 7 years. Let's have a listen to what Tyson says.
Named for the Egyptian god of death and darkness. It was named only after its trajectory was identified to intersect that of Earth. Had that not been the case, we would not have named it Apophis. We could name it like Tiffany or something, or Bambi. You know, something not threatening. This one was headed towards Earth, Apophis. Once you discover an asteroid, you got to wait a little while to get enough of a segment of its orbit to calculate what the full orbit will be to know if it will come in harm's way. We did that. We, the community. I wasn't the one. We got peeps who do this, okay? So we get the orbit. Turns out, in the year 2029, the month of April, the 13th of April, a Friday, Apophis will come so close to Earth that it will dip below our orbiting communication satellite.
Okay, so according to satellite information, they are between, I think it's approximately 2,000 miles to the geostationary satellites, which are very close to 22,000 miles. So between 2,000 miles and 22,000 miles, this asteroid may slip into that distance. It will come underneath the satellites.
And it is the size of the Rose Bowl. It'll be the largest, closest thing we have ever observed to come by Earth. Now, of course, a much bigger asteroid took out the dinosaurs, but we weren't around at the time. So this is in the era of observing the cosmos with technology. This will be the closest, biggest thing we'll ever see come by. Now, the orbit we now have for it is uncertain enough, because these things are hard to measure and hard to get an exact distance for. The orbit is uncertain enough, so we cannot tell you exactly where that trajectory will be. We know it won't hit Earth. We know it'll be closer than the orbiting satellite. There is a range, a 600-mile zone. We call it the keyhole. If the asteroid goes through the middle of that keyhole, it will hit the Earth 13 years later.
Now, Tyson made a mistake there. He said 13 years later, after it spins past us, 13 years later it will hit the Earth after it returns. He corrects this near the end of the video, and he says, no, he didn't mean 13, he meant 7 years, so 2029.
It will hit the Earth 500 kilometers due west of Santa Monica.
It doesn't matter where it goes through that keyhole.
Now, that's if it goes through the center. If it goes through other places within that keyhole, then the contact point shifts further into the Pacific or closer towards North America. Yes. But if it goes through the center, it hits the Pacific Ocean, plunges down into the Pacific to a depth of 3 miles, at which point it explodes, cavitating the Pacific in a hole that's 3 miles wide, 3 miles deep. That will send a tsunami wave outward from that location. That's 50 feet high. 5-story.
This part of the story always remains the same. It is always 50 feet or 5 stories, which you'll hear in his second story.
Oceans don't like having holes in them. So, this 3-mile-high wall does what? Falls back into the hole, sloshing against itself with such ferocity that it rises high into the atmosphere and falls back down to the ocean, cavitating the ocean again. So now you make a cavity a second time. This cycle takes about 50 seconds. You can calculate it, okay? So, here comes the first tsunami, and 50 seconds later comes another tsunami. So there you are on the beaches of Malibu. Tsunami comes in. All the $1 million homes in Malibu, they get taken out to the sea and then back. But this time they're in a slightly different shape, okay? And so what happens is all the artificial stuff, all the houses, the factories, they get churned into this ablative force that sandblasts the entire west coast of North America clean.
Here's the point where he corrects himself and changes it back to 7 years.
So, I'm sorry, I said 13 years after 2020. I misspoke. It's April 13th, 2029, and if it threads the keel, it will hit Earth April 13th, 2036. So it's a 7-year.
So this is where I relate it to what I'd said. I've never seen Tyson's videos about this. I just saw one from 2 weeks ago yesterday, and then I decided to see, has he been grifting this same story since then? And I guess he has, literally word for word. So we're going to play the second video in a minute from 2 weeks ago. The one I just played was from 15 years ago. My whole point of the story, though, is that I've stated 2036, and if you add 22.4, half an hour in heaven equals 22.4 years on Earth. If you add that to 2014, you get 2036.4, which is April, May, and suddenly we find out that Tyson's been predicting this all along. And remember, at the beginning, NASA say it's not going to hit. Tyson is saying it could, it might, and here's what's going to happen if it does. Remember that, because his words are coming at the end of this video, which tells you the difference between blue and red, the right and the left. Okay, here's his second video from 2 weeks ago.
If it goes through the keyhole, it will hit us April 13th, 2036. Thursday, by the way. If it goes through the center, by the way, the chances of this now, our data tell us, is several in a million. So you say, oh, not worry about that. But there are people who buy lottery tickets with worse odds than that, expecting to win. So at some point, you got to sit down and pay attention, even if it's several in a million. So if it threads the center of the keyhole, it'll hit it'll hit 500 kilometers west of Santa Monica, plunge into the ocean to a depth of 3 miles, cavitating the ocean to a width of 3 miles. It'll explode, that's the cavitating force, and send a tsunami 50 to 5 stories, so 50 feet tsunami, 5-story tall.
There he is with his 50 feet and 5 stories 15 years later.
That will come to the west coast of North America and basically wipe it clean, okay? And so this hole in the ocean is what made the first tsunami, but then there's the matter of the hole in the ocean. If you're in an ocean and you have a big hole, what is the first thing you're gonna do? You wanna fill in the hole. So your water fills in the hole, and the act of doing so splashes into the center with such ferocity that it rises high, falls back down, cavitating the ocean again. This will happen about 40 times before it dampens out completely. And so that means there are about 40 tsunamis that'll come into the coast. And so they'll come in, it'll go through the $1 million Malibu homes. Then the next tsunami say, I need your water, please. So then the water goes back out, it takes the home with it, you know? And then the next tsunami comes and brings the home back in a slightly different shape, right? And this continues, and all this, what we would call civilization on the coast, becomes an ablative, churning, destructive force that wipes the entire west coast of the United States clean.
Again, we hear the ablated destruction, literally word for word, again.
Nobody has to die. We would know when this would happen to the minute. 2 people will die. The stupid surfer, okay? That guy's gonna die, okay? First, okay, ready for the second person? The stupid weatherman, okay? You ever see these guys?
He told those 2 same jokes in the first story. I just cut them out because it was rambling.
Bring the camera a little closer. You can see the waves. The people who want to get close to the hurricanes, those weather guys, that's the second person who dies. Everyone else is good to go. Let's move on. Black holes. I told you I have special access to NASA.
And that final sentence.
I told you I have special access to NASA.
He has special access to NASA. That tells us all we need to know. If this man has special access to NASA, why on earth doesn't he know that NASA's already said it's not going to hit us? Because he's now saying it might hit us. And this is what I was saying earlier about the world we live in and the false illusion of choice. They give you the red side or they give you the blue side. But here, because Tyson's a shill, he has fully explained the narcissistic governments and elites' plans when they pretend to offer you a choice. Doesn't matter who's in power, red or blue. If red's in power and they're scumming everybody and taxes and all that sort of thing, when you're looking at that red group, people go, oh, they're really bad. And then the blue guys come up and they go, hey, give us a chance. We'll make things great. We couldn't surely make things worse, and we definitely wouldn't do what they've done. But they do. So there's never a choice of right or wrong or good or bad. There's only a choice of out of the frying pan and into the fire. And this is the rule of narcissism. You do not give right or wrong. You do not give left or right. You give all left with two differing opinions, or all right and two different opinions. So NASA says that this thing is not going to hit us. Apophis is not going to hit us. But Tyson turns around and said, it might hit us. So they've given us both options as their option. It's going to hit us or it's not going to hit us. So you can't trust any of them out of a frying pan and into a fire because they turn and say, vote for us or put me in this job because I'll do a better job than the people did before. I certainly wouldn't lie to you or scum to you. And they never do in the beginning because that's called love bombing. But then they future fake you by telling you all these wonderful things that are going to happen in the future. But all you see is the day-to-day quality of living going down. This is called future faking. It's an absolute outright lie. Turn to green, let's have electric and there'll be no climate change. When in fact the climate's actually shown during the pandemic when everybody was off for 2 years that carbon dioxide levels rose even though all business was shut down. So what they're saying will get rid of this, which is really just control over people, doesn't happen. It's the exact opposite of what's going to happen because this is narcissistic manipulation to control an entire population. So, as far as I'm concerned, I think they do know it's going to hit us. And think of it this way. I said it was 2036. Tribulation for 7 years will start in 2029. A shill for NASA has just said the same thing, while NASA denies that it's going to hit us. Now think about if a rose bowl-sized asteroid came into our atmosphere but didn't hit Earth and swung past. There are going to be geomagnetic craziness. That's why I haven't bothered saving any food, mainly because I can't afford it, and I've not really given this big push to anybody else. What's coming is coming. It's 2023. You got till 2029. You got 6 years to prepare before things really go upended and tribulation arrives for everybody. And what we're going to see is, as it states in the Bible, the upheaval of the earth is going to be so unbelievable. It hasn't been seen since the founding of the earth. So there's going to be massive upheaval, and then 7 years later this is going to come back. So whatever it does to the planet, if it happens at all, will start off the terrible, terrible things that are going to happen. So even though now things look bad, think of Jesus' words. He said, there will be war, there will be famine, there will be pestilence, and there will be death, but these are not the end. This is just the beginnings of the pangs of the earth. So from now until 2029, things are actually going to get worse, and then 2029, all hell's going to break loose. So if you think you can do anything between now and 2029 or sooner, please go ahead. I can't afford to do any of that. God has deliberately placed me in a place where I'm never going to have enough money to try and save myself. So You know, that's just the way it goes. But that's what I said. I worked it out, and now NASA has denied it, and the other side of their coin is it could well happen. So we'll have to wait and see. But if I am correct in working it out, and Tyson is correct, then all things said have worked for the good of God. No one knows the hour or the day. I said that when I said the date. I said, but nobody said I couldn't name the year or even the month it's close to. And I said 22.4 years. That's May of 2036. So it could be coincidence, but as everybody knows, as I've said on my channel since 2014, there aren't any such things as coincidences. There are only things which forward the plan of God. Thanks very much. My name is Lee. I follow the Christ. And who knows where this video will go or what it even means. So, thanks a lot. Bye.
I told you I have special access to NASA.